Right, hello everyone. Long time no see. It's been just over 2 weeks since the last podcast. We've had a nice little break away from the rough and tumble of the Tipperary County Championship, but we're back ready for what is just going to be a massive weekend of action. We have quarterfinals in the Senior, Premier Intermediate, and Intermediate Hurling Championships to look forward to. We also have relegation semi-finals to look forward to, and a few different talking points that I'm going to bring up throughout the podcast. So let me just make sure we're still recording. We are, so we're good to go. So we'll open up the screen there for everyone to see if you're watching on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube, give us an old subscription. We're eking ever closer to the 100 subscriber mark. So we're doing all right there. So the support of the podcast has been great as well. There's been plenty of downloads and listens and views and things like that. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. And yeah, we'll talk down through all the games as usual. If you're just tuning in for the first time, throughout the championship, we go down through all the fixtures each week, and I give my opinions and predictions on what I think is going to happen. Just a general chat around all things in the championship as well. So I have a few podcast notes to write down. Of course, the review podcast will be coming on Monday to look back on all the games. I have Across the Line here. That's on Tip FM. My Friday evening sports show on Tip FM. Very good episode lined up this week, I will say. We got a lot of the senior club managers, Eddie Brennan, Shane Keegan, John O'Mara, Ken Dunn, a few more on the show previewing all the games and things like that. So that's Friday evening, 6 o'clock on Tip FM if you want even more of more preview to the weekend's action. So we have, as I said, 18 games to look at. We do have the Junior A quarterfinals this weekend, but I'd be lying to you if I said I'd seen any of these teams play, so there's no point to me giving predictions really on those games, but they are on this weekend as well. So it's just a massive weekend of hurling in Tipperary. So we will start, before we get into the predictions and before we get into the senior games, you'll see if you're watching on YouTube the podcast notes I just put together. Under 19 congestion. This is something that's kind of really come to the fore this week and in the last couple of weeks. The under 19 championship, brilliant championship. I'd question maybe the structure of it at times. Even seeing my own club Burgess playing in some of the games. A lot of the games were the group games are not meaningless, but they've no effect on the seedings, and in terms of they've no effect on, because everyone goes through to the knockout stages. So there's an awful lot of games there which don't mean an awful lot. But then it gets down to the knockout stages, and the games mean everything, and they're kind of squeezed in between, intermediate, Premier Intermediate, senior games and things like that. So an example of it, a really incredible example of it, is actually this week. So if you look at the likes of an Oisin O'Donoghue, who plays for Cashel, was on the Tip under 20s this year. This week for him, he would have played last Sunday against Boherlahan Douala in the preliminary quarter final, and that was a brilliant game. I done that game on Tip FM, and brilliant game. He actually hurled really well, Oisin O'Donoghue. But then on Tuesday evening, he played the West under 19 final, West under 19 hurling final against Golden. It went to extra time, and Cashel won. So that was Tuesday. He'd already played on Sunday. Now Thursday, which is, as I'm recording, this is Wednesday evening at 6:10 when I'm recording this. But on Thursday, he's playing for Cashel in the county under 19 hurling semi-final. They're playing St Mary's. So he's played Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Cashel are playing Saturday then against Thurles Sarsfields in the Premier Intermediate Championship. And he'll be a big part of that team. So it's just incredible how it's so congested, and there's no real reason for it. Fair enough with the county championships and things like that at the senior grade and intermediate and things like that. There is a reason to have it done by a certain date, because it rolls on into the provincial championship. Now, if you agree that that's a reason to, have the games maybe a little bit quicker or not, that's another conversation. But there's none of that in under 19, so there's no reason to congest in the under 19 as such. So maybe that's just something the county board could look at. It's just too much like that. Now that Oisin O'Donoghue example might be an extreme example, but if you look at some of the Toom players, Darren McCarthy and Adam Hall and these lads, they would have played a lot the last couple of weeks as well. between their North final went to extra time, and then the semi final against Holy Cross in the county championship, and now they have this weekend again the county senior. And just someone like Darren McCarthy, there's an awful lot of hurling played this year. If you look at the Tip under-20s, he was training with the Tip seniors, Nenagh Harty Cup run, so maybe something needs to be done. But just them underage competitions, because they're great competitions and they're great games. And just going back to the point on the group stages and the way that the games don't count for seedings and things like that, you'll see that in the under 15 and under 17 as well. There is reasons behind that. Those reasons being that in times gone past, you'd have young lads away on holidays, and a team could have 2 players on holidays this week, 2 players on holidays next week, and there's teams will be saying, oh, we're not playing this week because we've this lad missing and this lad missing, and we're not playing next week because we've these lads missing, and games were getting pushed back, and there was even more congestion and things like that. And plus there's that issue of young lads getting game time and things like that. So with the way it is now and the more group games, coaches and have that ability to play everyone and just get everyone game time, and that's incredibly important as well. So there is reasons to it, but yeah, maybe something will be done about that congestion. And similarly, I have relegation semi-finals between the end of the county group stage, round 3, and the quarter-finals is a 3-week gap, and that's fair enough because they have that kind of week in there for the preliminary quarter-finals, and also it is a time for clubs to just rest up and get players ready for the knockout stages. But the one argument I'd have is the relegation semi-finals probably could have been played last weekend. I don't think, I'd say if you asked any of the clubs involved in the relegation battles, would they rather the 2-week build-up or the 3-week build-up? I would imagine they'd prefer the 2-week build-up. I know from being with Burgess, like in relegation battles we've had down through the last 5 or 6 years, that you'd nearly played the relegation semi-final the Tuesday night after you lost the round 3 game on the Sunday, that kind of thing. You just want to get it done and get it out of the way. So yeah, and plus there wasn't an awful lot of games on last weekend, whereas this weekend, if like a lot of people, like I'd like to see Bursley and Lura, but I'm going to be at the senior quarterfinals on Saturday, and there's a lot of clashing of fixtures, and Burgess playing Carrick Swan, and that's on the same time as Thurles and Nenagh and things like that. There's an awful lot of fixture congestion. Now I know they're both quarterfinals, there's no relegation semi-finals there, but just in general, I thought the relegation semi-finals could have been possibly played last week, so maybe that's something that the county board can look at, because the way it is now, the relegation can't be held up by a preliminary quarter-final anymore, because if you finish bottom of your group, you lose that privilege of using your divisional win to go into a preliminary quarter-final. So there's no real reason for the relegation semi-finals to wait 3 weeks. But anyway, those are some of the little things I had chalked down that I wanted to talk about before we get into the games. So let's do it now. Let's get into the games. We'll start with the senior. So we have Saturday 3:15 in Semple Stadium. We've Killadangan against Moycarkey Burris. Doubleheader, of course. After that at 5 is Toom against JK Brackens. Then Sunday at 2:15, Loughmore-Castleiney versus Killarone McDonagh's in Semple Stadium, and a doubleheader again. Following up that at 4 o'clock on Sunday is Thurles versus Nenagh. So first of all, good to see the games back in Semple Stadium. The stadium had been closed off for the early parts of the championship just to let the ground repair and things like that. And I'm excited to get back in there, just see what the ground is like again. And it feels more novel, I suppose, now, because remember in years gone by, you'd have 1 or 2 first, second, third round games, group stage games in Semple Stadium every week. So it feels more even special now to be going down there on Saturday. But Killadangan against Moycarkey Burris. Killadangan going into this game as big favourites. I didn't pull up the odds. I must do that now. So we'll just we'll type in the Paddy Power. Just have the odds in front of me. I don't know if any of their actual match odds are there, but we'll have a look. So let me see. And this is just a nice kind of tool to see what the general consensus is on these games. So Tipperary Club Hurling. Okay, so the odds for the games are there. So we have Killadangan massive 1-8 against Moycarkey Burris is 11-2. So that's how it stands. Look, it's a big step up for my Carkey Burris. Their last quarter-final appearance was 1991. On the other hand, if you look at Killadangan, this is their seventh. Sorry, my Carkey Burris last quarter-final appearance 1991. Yeah, and if you look at Killadangan, their last quarter-final appearance was last year, but they've had 7 consecutive years now of reaching at least the quarter-finals. So there's a huge gap in experience between the two sides at this level. So Killadangan had that game against Clounty that we talk about in every podcast, or they're down by 8 points in extra time and come back and get the draw. Then they have substantial wins over Templederry and then over JK Brackens in the last round. What was it, 231 to 16 points or something like that against JK Brackens. So Killadangan are flying it. I've actually, as part of my research for the games, I'll be commentating on the games on Tip FM over the weekend. So I've just compiled who scored what for some of the teams. I don't have it done yet for all the games so far, but if you look at Killadangan, Paul Flynn has scored 414 from play in the county championship so far. Just crazy stuff. Alan Flynn has scored 9 points from playing the last 2 games from centre back, and Billy Seymour 231. They're really in flying form. Are Killadangan. And then if you look at JK Brackens, in fairness, Max Hackett has got 3-5, Kyle Shelley's got 2-12. Reece Shelley has actually scored 2-4. He scored those 2 kind of 21-yard frees against Thurles in there as well. Kyle Shelley, as I mentioned, and Kieran Morris missed the first game, but is back in solid form. And Jack Hayes, young fellow who got the teeth injury there the last day, not sure if he's going to play this weekend, but he had got 5 points in the championship, so Jack Fallon there with 7. So look, you can get bogged down on who scored what, but it's just a nice kind of tool there for myself. But look, it is going to be hard to see my Carkey win this. If you look back to last year in the quarter-final, Holy Cross Ballycahill were in the similar position going in to their first quarter-final in about 20 years it was for them, and they went in against Killadangan and gave them a really, really good game. That game came down to the wire. If I get that up in front of me here, probably my most visited Wikipedia page is the Tipperary Senior Hurling Championship Wikipedia page. As you can see, it's already in purple. So if we go down to the quarter-final stages last year, where are we? So Killadangan 222 to Holy Cross's 317. So that's 28 points to 26. So that was an extremely close game, and Holy Cross really put it up to Killadangan that day. So that's the hope my Carkey Burris will have going into this game. But if you look at my Carkey, they had that really quick, fast start against Roscrea, a great win there. Then they had that really disappointing result against Thurles, and then they had that big win, backs against the wall, against Mullinahone on the last day. So I'm excited to see how this game goes. 1-8 is, scandalous really in terms of Killadangan being that much favourites, but they're county champions for a reason. Back into Semple Stadium, which won't be a big thing for them at all, whereas it's a big occasion for my Carkey Burris being back at this stage of the championship and the first time in so long back into Semple Stadium. So look, it's hard to go against Killadangan here, so we're going to have to give Killadangan the nod there, but looking forward to that one all the same. Now the next game, finding it hard to call. As I'm talking now, as I'm thinking in my head, I don't have a clear answer as to who I think is going to win this. Toomevara against JK Brackens. For Toom, they had the opening round defeat to Bursley, then they had the great win over Drum, and then the big win over Killer One. Well, what was it, 4 points in the end over Killer One in Nenagh in the last round. For JK Brackens, kind of flipped around for them. They had 2 massive wins over Templederry and over Clouty Rossmore. Looked so impressive. That actually qualified them for the knockout stages before they played Killadangan, and then they played Killadangan. They were missing a few, Paddy Cadell being one of them, and Paddy Cadell is just so important for this JK Brackens team. He's the anchor centre back, so strong coming through rucks and things like that, and he's a real leader for that team. So they're missing him against Killadangan, and they got blown out of the water. Was it 231 to 16 points, something like that? So yeah, JK Brackens, it's hard to predict what's going to happen. Speaking to Shane Keegan, their manager, and you'll hear the audio on Friday nights across the line, shameless plug, but he was just speaking about how they really kind of needed that 3-week break or 2-week break really, leading into this game, and to just recharge the batteries. They would have been playing week in, week out. They would have been playing week in, week out with the football as well. So it's really interesting now, this one. Toom, if you look at the scores the two teams have done, and I'll just open up my document. These are the documents I do now for when I'm actually commentating on games. I've to fill, this isn't fully filled up with information and all that yet, but if you look at the scoring done, like Brackens 626 against Tipperary, 226 against Clonalty, and then just the 16 points. But that's what, 852, 868 they've scored in their 3 championship games, whereas Toom have scored what? Actually, well, bar the goals, Toom have got what, 320, what are we talking, 362, if that's right. So, 868, 362. All games are different. This is kind of meaningless, really, to be going through that. But JK Brackens, the way they play, I think they'll really like Semple Stadium. And they've had good performances in the stadium in the last couple of years. There was a couple of years ago against Kildangan down in Semple Stadium, and they're so comfortable playing the ball out, and on big field in Semple Stadium there will be more space for them to play those balls. If it's going to be an open scoring game, Bracken's forward line, like Lyndon Fairbrother, Andrew and Jamie Ormond 115 I think from play in the first 3 games, 17, 18 year old. The big open spaces, that might suit JK Brackens a little bit more than it would suit Toomevara. If you look at Toom, I actually have their scores up here, down here. So if you look at Toom, their top scorer from play in the 3 championship games is Darren McCarthy with 7 points. So that's 7 points from play. There's no one else. And Adam Hall is 2-2, so that's 8 points. He's their top scorer from play in the championship. And if you look at JK Brackens, on the other hand, Lyndon Fairbrother has scored 3-5. Andrew Ormond has got 6 points. Jamie Ormond 115. John Ned Walsh 2-2. Aina McBride 1-5. Shane Doyle 8 points, albeit 2 sidelines. But they've been more the free flowing side. If it's a slower game, which Toom kind of like to play with free taking and winning dirty ball like that, that kind of game will favour Toom. If it's kind of an expansive, open, free flowing game, then that you could fancy JK Brackens. I just think JK Brackens would have lost a bit of momentum, with that loss to Kildangan, albeit I'm sure they've written off as we were missing lads, we were already through, whatever. But I just think I do lean Toomevara on this one, but I'll say it once, I'll say it about probably 15, 16 more times in this podcast. It's going to be hard to call, but we'll start going through them now. Sunday then, 2:15 in Semple Stadium. Killarone MacDonald's against Loughmore-Castleiney. Killarone, we spoke about, lost their last game against Toomevara. They had that narrow win over Bursley and that brilliant first round win over Drummond-Inch. For Loughmore-Castleiney, it's just been win, win, win for them. 3 wins in the group stages. They're mid-champions. They're the form team. And it's going to be hard to back against them. But Killarone MacDonald's, I think they'll be coming down to Semple Stadium with a lot of confidence, albeit they did lose to Toom last time out. But just the fact that they're here, they're against Loughmore-Castleiney, it's on TG Cahard, it's a big nationally televised game, easy one to get up for. They would have good memories of being down in Semple Stadium in terms of winning the county final 2 years ago. Loughmore-Castleiney county finalists or county winners from 3 years ago. And if you look at the last time these two teams met was back in the quarter-final of 2021, and Loughmore-Castleiney won that day, but John McGrath had something like 4-6, 4-5 or something scored in the first half. He got 2 penalties and 2 goals in the first 10 minutes, so that pretty much rendered the game over pretty early on that day. But I think Killarone, the way they play, this is going to be a really interesting game to see, because Killarone, they have a really good free taker in Willie Cleary, albeit missed a couple was it the last game or the game before, which is uncharacteristic of him, but missed a couple. But they've really good free taker in Willie Cleary, but they've ball winners. They've Keane O'Kelly, they have Thomas Cleary, and then they've someone like Keane Darcy who will just punish if he gets chances in front of goals. And then you look at the likes of Jerry Cal, Niall O'Mara. There's a lot of really good talent on the field here for this one. Loughmore then, John McGrath, Noel McGrath, the two Conleys, Kieran and Nate. This is going to be a really good game. I'd imagine Loughmore are the favourites for this one. I didn't actually look at the Toomevara favourites against JK Brackens. Loughmore 1-2 to Killer One's 15-8. I'd have it closer than that now. God, it's hard to go against Loughmore just given the form that they're in throughout the year. So we will go at Loughmore-Castleiney, but I just want to say that I think Killer One have a really good chance here. I'll go at Loughmore, so I'm not gonna play both sides here. I'll go at Loughmore-Castleiney. Why? Just because they know how to win games and they've been winning all year. Why don't I go at Killer One? They lost to Toom the last time out. I'll lean Loughmore-Castleiney, but you can tell by the way I'm talking that it's. I think this is going to be a really good game. Can't wait to be down in Semple Stadium for that one, and can't wait to just witness this one. But we will go with Loughmore-Castleiney. Then the last game Sunday, 4:00 in Semple Stadium. Nenagh against Thurles Sarsfields. This I can't wait for this one now. Well, I've said that for nearly every game, but I am genuinely really looking forward to all these games. Thurles Sarsfields against Nenagh. They played in the preliminary quarter-final last year, and it was a close enough game. It was 3 or 4 points. Thurles won for a finish. I think that was Jake Morris's first game back after suffering the jaw injury in the North Final last year. So Jake is in really good form this year. Nenagh had that very disappointing first round game against Holy Cross. Then they blew Lura out of the water, and then they lost to Loughmore by a point the last time out, but performed really well in that game, and you could see them kind of growing as the year went on. For Thurles Sarsfields, they were beaten by Loughmore first time out in the mid-championship, but it's been clean sailing for them in the group stages, kind of untouched by Mullinahone, Rossgrey or Mycarkey in the group stages. Their last game against Rossgrey was a dead rubber, so hard to get too much from it, albeit they did lose Mossy McCormack in that game to a knee injury. I believe it is an ACL, so we wish him all the best of luck in his recovery. He's going to be a loss now for Thurles this weekend. So you might see them maybe pulling up lads from their second team who play Cashel in the Premier Intermediate. So, maybe, albeit that game is on the Premier Intermediate is on Saturday, whereas the seniors on Sunday. But you'd imagine if they're going to be playing lads from the Premier Intermediate, maybe they'll hold them off on Saturday to have them for Sunday. But that remains to be seen. But yeah, Thurles haven't been tested in this county championship so far. You'd imagine Paddy Maher and co would have been, getting the team primed and ready for this stage of the season. Let's not forget now they're beaten county finalists last year after extra time, in a replay. And came within a whisker of level in that game in the replay against Killadangan. So, Thurles Sarsfields are this isn't new territory for them at all. And if you look at the form, they've won 3 of their 3 games in the county championship. Nenagh have only won the 1 of their 3 games, and Nenagh have only won 1 championship game so far this year, and they've won 2, but they've both been against Lura in the North Championship and in the county championship. So, if you're looking at Nenah's record this year, it's 2-3, 2 wins, 3 losses in the county championship. Whereas Thurles are 3-1, 3 wins, 1 loss. But I think this is going to be close because Nenagh have a thing with Thurles where they can beat them, and a couple of years ago they shell-shocked Thurles down in Semple Stadium in a quarter-final. What was it that day? 12 to 8 points or something like that. Thurles only scored a point in the first half of that game. So although if you were to look at the form guide, you would say, right, Thurles should win this handy enough. But I think there will be some scars in the Thurles Sarsfields camp. I know they bet them last year, but just in terms of that will be in the back of their head that Nenagh can beat us. They have beaten us, 3 times in the last 10 years or so. So I think Thurles will be really wary of Nenagh. For Nenagh, obviously Jake is in great form, but the likes of Sam O'Farrell, Tommy Heffernan the last day, and Barry Heffernan is kind of really back to full strength now. I think Nenagh will be going down here. I know they've only beaten Lura so far this year, but I think they'll be going down with an awful lot of confidence. I'm really looking forward to this game. I don't know what the odds are for this one. Thurles are 2-5 and Nenagh are 9-4. Nenagh 9-4 it's an iconic price, but they're that is it's a good price for Nenagh, I think, because yeah, they're a hard team to predict. Nenagh could go out here and not put it up Thurles at all, or they could go out here like they done a couple of years ago and blow Thurles out of the water. So really hard game to predict here. Um, every form book will tell you Thurles Sarsfields. The odds will tell you Thurles. I have a slight fancy for Nenagh, and I don't know if this is a North Tipperary bias or anything like that. I do have a slight fancy for Nenagh, but I don't know if I can put it down on paper. Um, Thurles Sarsfields, it's like how Nenagh are going to play is going to be really key, because against Lura, as I mentioned before, how direct they played in that game. Um, Ben West, these lads were snapping ball on the edge of the square. Philip Hickey, Jake Morris, even that day. But if I think they probably have to play Jake out further or move him around in this game, because if they stick him in corner forward, Thurles will stick Paul Maher on him, who is a really, really good man marker, and they'll have Ronan Maher sweeping as he did last year, as he always does for this Thurles team, and they'll make it really hard for Nenagh to get the ball into Jake's hands. So I think Nenah's best way of winning this game is to ensure they can get the ball into Jake's hands as much as possible, wherever that is on the field. So they might maybe play him out around the half forward line, just to make it harder to get a hold of him. If you look at these teams when they met last year, I think there was 4 points in the difference. Billy McCarthy scored 1-2 that day, and Billy McCarthy's in Australia now, so he's not going to be there for Thurles. So I find it hard to put a convincing argument together to say that Thurles are maybe stronger this year than they were last year. Now, I know they do have, I think, Joseph Ryan and a few more of them are back now for Thurles. Whether they play with the senior or premier intermediate, I don't know. But am I calling an upset? Am I calling an upset for Nenagh? Like, I don't know. I feel like I am. I don't know. Thurles, though, God, with all their experience with Ronan, Dennis Maher, Stephen Cahill, Connor and Dara Stakelum. Now that I'm naming off the names, you can tell how hard I find this to call. So I think we're going to go with. It's the easy thing is just to say Thurles, isn't it? The easy thing is I'm going to go draw. There we go. We're doing it. We're doing the draw. A draw in that game. I've talked myself out of Nenagh winning, and I've talked myself out of Thurles winning. So we're going to go with a draw in that one. So, right, let's move it on now. What are we, 27 minutes in? Let's get down to the relegation. Double header in Nenagh. Now, this is going to be a place to be. A relegation matches are just a different breed, aren't they? They're just the tension of them is just different level. Everyone is so on edge. The sideline is on edge. Even more so than the quarterfinals, the actual last eight of the competition, the bottom four, the relegation semi-finals and relegation final, just they often take on a life of their own. They're so tense. They're often low scoring. But yeah, really looking forward to these games. A double header in Nenagh. Not a bad place to be if you can't make Semple Stadium on Saturday. 2:30, Bursalee against Lura. 4:15, Templederry against Rossgrave. Bursalee against Lura. Bursalee, I'd say Bursalee will find it hard the last couple of weeks, thinking, how in the name of God are we here? Now I know Lura for themselves, they came down, to that Loughmore-Castleiney game, but Lura probably knew going into that Holy Cross game that things had to go their way and things like that, whereas Bursalee probably knew going into their last group game that things had to really go against them for them to miss out, and that's just how it transpired. But for Bursalee, they should be the favourites for this game. I'd imagine they are the favourites. Let's pull up our friend Paddy Power here again. Bursalee 1-6 and Lura 4-1. Wow, that is more skewed than I thought it would be. Bursalee, they will be big favourites. Well, I just read out their odds. They are big favourites for this game. But Lura just have something, and they will have taken huge confidence from that Holy Cross game, I think Lura will. What Lura have is an ability to score goals. If you look at it, 5 goals against Holy Cross. They scored 3 against Nenagh when they really didn't play well. I think they might have only got the 1 against Loughmore-Castleiney, but Owen McIntyre, Bonner Maher, Niall McIntyre, the Fogartys, they have firepower. They have the ability to score goals. If you look at Bursalee, I don't think they put up any big scores in any of their games. I'm pull it up here. Bursalee were in Group 1. So what did they put up? 219 against Drum. That's fair enough. They put up 117 against Killer One and 117 against Toomevara. So, it's not low scoring by any means, but I just think Lura's goal scoring ability can really keep them in this game. But, with Brendan Maher, Dan McCormack, Eddie Ryan in good form and things like that, James Devaney, I think Lura's defence catches them out. They've got the firepower. I don't think Lura will go down, but I don't think they'll beat Bursalee. But I think their 4-1 odds is a bit off. We'll go with Bursalee in that game, but really interesting to see that one as well. Then the other game, Templederry against Roscrea. This is again, put it down in the hard to call column. Templederry against Roscrea in Nenagh, 4:15 on Saturday. Again, Templederry have that firepower. Likewise, Roscrea have really had a poor year this year compared to, they were semi-finalists, quarter-finalists last year. If we pull up last year's quarter-final, they only lost by a point to Loughmore in the quarter-finals last year, and they find themselves just in a bad place this year. I don't have much contacts in Roscrea or anything like that to know what's going on or what way it's gone, but we've seen them with bad starts in games, and it's cost them in pretty much all their games, especially that one against Mike Harkey-Burris, where they got blown out of the water in the first 10 minutes. Templederry plagued with injuries this year. Brian Stapleton, I'm not sure if he's going to be back playing or anything like that, if he's going to feature for them. But they do have an X factor in Sean Ryan, and he could be the difference in these games. This is a really interesting one, really hard to call. If I have a lean, it's Templederry, and why is that? Because of Sean Ryan, really. Because if you can just get the ball into Sean Ryan, he'll give you a chance. If you're asking me now, I think it's one of these two teams that will go down. I would expect, but God, you just don't know when it gets to relegation semi-finals. But we'll give the lean to Templederry here in this one to beat Roscrea and to save their skin, and that would leave a Roscrea Lura relegation final. So the past two Premier Intermediate champions would be meeting in the relegation final in this scenario. But let's see how those games play out. So that's the 6 senior games happening this weekend. I just want to fix that because that's really annoying me. Right, so let's move on now to the Premier Intermediate. So we have what was a doubleheader in Holy Cross. Now it's just one game in Holy Cross and one game in Kilcommon. The game in Holy Cross, 2:15 on Saturday. Thurles Sarsfields against Cashel King Cormac's. God Almighty, this is going to be a really good game. Thurles Sarsfields beaten finalists last year. I think they're like the gatekeepers of this division, and what I mean by that is, like, if you want to win this county Premier Intermediate, the Seamus O'Reen Cup, you have to go through this Thurles Sarsfields team. That's just how it's been the last couple of years. Lura with them last year. They're a really, really experienced team. They've Pa Burke playing with them this year. Mikey Call, how great has he been playing the last 2 years? Now they have lost a couple of lads, I think, from last year to the senior team this year, but they're still so strong. They're a really experienced team. Then for Cashel King Cormac's, they've been getting through games. They would have lost out to Gartnahoe with that last minute goal in the first round. Then they bet Mine Temple 2 with a couple of goals late on in that game. And then their last group stage game, they drew with Aero Gannacarthy, and then they bet Borland Douala last week. And I was doing that game last weekend, and really good second half performance. I thought they actually showed a lot of composure, and the one criticism I'd have of this Cashel team in the last couple of years is just it's not really a criticism, it's just that they're a young team, and they don't really have that older head on the team. They're experienced leaders and things like that, are likes of Owen Connolly, who himself is still very young, and Ger Brown and these fellas who are still young players. Like, they're not the experienced 31-year-old players. So this is a really hard game to call. You kind of feel this Cashel team with all the star power, they're expected to push on, and I've been saying that they've been getting stronger and stronger every year, and they've been in the knockout stages quite a lot. I think they maybe, the fact that they played last week in a tough game, and a couple of their younger players like Oisin O'Donoghue, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, has been playing an awful lot in the last week. That might cost him a little bit, but interesting to see if Ger Brown will be back. He didn't come on against Borland Douala. He played that last game against Éire Óg Carthy, so that'll be a big thing if he is fit to play. This is a tough one to call. Like Thurles Sarsfields, that game against Clonakilty, on another day, Clonakilty's goals that were disallowed wouldn't have been disallowed, and maybe that's a closer game, but it is hard to back against Thurles Sarsfields, but I think I'm going to lean with Cashel. I don't know if there's odds out in these games. Doesn't seem to be yet anyway. But, I feel like it could be Cashel's kind of time for this team to push on. And, they were semi-finalists last year. It's not to say that they've been dwindling around the place the last couple of years. So I think we'll go with Cashel. Kyle Quinn hurling well. Devon Ryan, Ronan Conley and Owen Conley really well. Paddy Fahy in the middle of the field. It's going to be interesting to see who picks him up, because he's almost like a flanker in rugby. When he gets the ball, it's into his hand and take his man on, and he either opens things up or he wins frees. He's a real good midfielder for them to have. And Ross Bonner, real combative player that was huge for them last week. I think I'll lean with Cashel Kincormac's in this one. We'll lean with Cashel, right? The next game is just even harder to call. Éire Óg Carthy against Upperchurch Drumban. This game has been moved to Kilcommon on Saturday at 4 o'clock. God almighty, Upperchurch against Éire Óg Carthy. Two teams who are similar. They're both relegated from senior the last couple of years. Éire Óg Carthy 2 years ago and Upperchurch last year. Upperchurch favourites for the county. I don't know if we still have the outright favourites here. Yeah, so Upperchurch are 10-11 for the county now, and Éire Óg Carthy are 12-1. Wow. And then St Mary's 16-1. These are interesting odds, all right. But Upperchurch 10-11. Wow, that's I'm more shocked, I suppose, at Éire Óg Carthy being 12-1. There's a bit of value there, because I see this as a very close game, to be honest. I find it very hard to call. Éire Óg Carthy probably in their own heads should have bet Cashel in their last game, and they did top the group anyway, so it didn't make too much of a difference. But they've drawn Upperchurch Drumban, Upperchurch who lost to Carrick Swan first time out, and then they bet Silvermines and Ballina out of the football, so they're just going to be concentrating on the hurling now. It's a really tough one to call, I think, this game. I really liked how Éire Óg Carthy. Remember I said, if you've been listening to this podcast for the last few weeks, after I saw that West final, I was like, right, Éire Óg Carthy are a different team this year. Darren Mooney so solid in goals. Game on in Kilcommon. Yeah, this is a hard one. I might have to pull the draw out. I think this is going to be a draw. And what I mean by that is I think it's too hard to call to be 100% sure. But that will tell you the value there in Éire Óg Carthy. But we'll go with a draw on that one. The other game then, Sunday, the other quarter-final in the Premier Intermediate, 2:15 in Clonoulty, start of a double header, St Mary's against Gartnahoe Glengool. Fair play to St Mary's, as I've been saying. They've been the team that has surprised me the most, and they're actually getting stronger. In the group stages, they won all three of their games. They bet Killinall, they bet Tracy's, and they bet ourselves. So, they've exceeded my expectations this year, and here they are now in a quarter-final. And I think, both of these teams probably would have wanted to have gotten each other. If you look at it, I'd imagine Gartnahoe, when they were looking at the teams they could have gotten, they're probably hoping for St Mary's, and St Mary's probably looking at Gartnahoe, hoping to get them. I think that St Mary's beat them in an intermediate final in 2017, good few years back now, but Gartnahoe have been around this end of the championship themselves the last couple of years. Lost to Roscrea, didn't they, in the final 2 years ago. This is, and they actually could have won that final. Remember Roscrea's goalie, was it Daryl Ryan, made two unbelievable saves in that game. But I think, I said St Mary's are getting stronger. They have the likes of Carl Deely back. Richie Lahey was back the last day as well. It is Richie Lahey, isn't it? I'm not making that up. Was back the last, Rory Lahey was back the last This is a tough one to call. God, Gertnahu. I think I might go Gertnahu. I don't know why. I find this hard to predict now, but we will go with Gertnahu. And then if you're a regular watcher of this show, you know I'm going to say Burgess are going to win against Carrick Swan. Not going to say much more about that. And we'll move on. That game's on at 4 o'clock in Clonulty. Then the Premier Intermediate relegation, double header of relegation on Sunday. First game 2 o'clock, Sean Tracy's against Silvermines. 3:45 then we have Newport against Mine Temple Toohey. Right, I think Silvermines will beat Sean Tracy's. Sean Tracy's down a lot of bodies this year, and they have been struggling, particularly in second halves of games. You know, they could have been up on Killinall, I think, by a point or two at half time of that game. Were blown out of it in the second half. And against Burgess, then, you know, we were up by a point at half time after playing with the wind, and you know, we got the goals in the second half to stretch out that win. So I think Silvermines should win this game. You know, Jason Ford, interesting to see where he will play. Will he be back centre back like he was against Carrick Swan? I think that Carrick Swan win will have done Silvermines an awful lot of good. I know it was kind of a dead rubber, and Carrick Swan were probably resting a few, but yeah, I think Silvermines will get the win there in Dundrum. The other game then is Newport and Mine Temple Toohey. These teams played each other in the relegation semi-final last year. Mine Temple Toohey won it that day, and I actually think Mine Temple Toohey are actually playing better this year than they were last year. If we look at their results, they were right there against Cashel until late on. You know, they only lost to Gertnahu by a point in the last day. For Newport, they've struggled this year, missing a lot of lads, a lot of bodies down at different times of the championship. You know, a lot of players kind of moved on, let's say, the likes of Conor Mahoney, Sean O'Brien. So they just survived by the skin of their teeth against Portrush in the relegation final last year, and I think they might have to try and do that again in a relegation final this year. I'm going to go with Mine Temple Toohey just because they seem to be in the better form of the two teams. So we're getting through it now. Let's get to the intermediate. So 5 o'clock, intermediate quarterfinals, 5 o'clock on Saturday in Cloughjordan. We have Moneygall against Portrush. That's a repeat of the North final, which Moneygall won really well. I was at that game in Dala. They looked much better than Portrush that evening, but Port will have, Port with AJ Willis back now will have more confidence, and the fact that they've played Moneygall, they know what the crack is with them now. They'll know what to expect, but it's hard to look past Moneygall. I've put them down as my favourites for this championship from the very start. The firepower they have, the hurlers they have all over the field. Unless Portrush can, you know, make this a slow-paced game, you know, likes of John Sheedy nailing frees, AJ Willis winning ball, you know, get Michael Breen maybe to shut down Joe Forty or Sean Kennelly, and Robert Byrne try and dictate things from centre back. You know, I don't think it will be like the North final in terms of a proper blowout. I think it will be closer, but I will go with Moneygall to win that one in Cloughjordan. Then at the same time, Saturday, 5 o'clock in Cashel, we've Ballingarry against Knockavilla Kickham's. Ballingarry have been absolutely flying it this year with their league form, winning the South title, and they actually haven't played in a long time now that I think of it, because Skeena Rinky gave them a walkover in the last game, which means Ben Ivers, who got sent off against Kilsheelan in round 2, will actually miss this game, so he is going to be a loss. Knockavilla held on against Carrick Davins in the last round, but I think I'm going to go with Ballingarry in this one. They seem to be in the better, you know, more stable form, I suppose. Then Sunday at 12 in Newport, Shannon Rovers against Kappa White. Shannon Rovers, as I've mentioned, I think I've predicted, we can actually have a look back. I think I've predicted them to lose every game so far this year, and they've done the opposite. They've won every game. So yeah, I had them to lose against Arville. They won. I had them to lose against Drummond Inch. They won. And I had them to lose against Portrush in the last round, and they won. So I think for the good of Shannon Rovers people, I should probably say Kappa White are going to win this, but now I actually think Shannon Rovers are going to win this. You know, that win against Portrush was just massive for them. Kappa White, seen them in the flesh in the last couple of weeks. They now do have Conor Martin back, who missed the opening couple of rounds, but they've had a poor year. I know they won the last round, but they had losses against who did they beat in the last round? They had, sorry, I can look back on it here because I know they lost their first two, and then they beat Clouty's second team in the last round. So they actually lost out to Ballybacon and Golden and lost the West final. So it's hard to look past Shannon Rovers here in this one. So what a year it'll be for Shannon Rovers getting to the last four if they can win that one. And then the last game, 5 o'clock on Sunday in Bursalee, Kane against Golden Kilfeacle. You have a Golden team that were in the final last year on really good form. You know, likes of Jack Leamy, Ben Curvin, really good players. Kane, Oisin Larkin in flying form. They're coming in off the bounce of winning that preliminary quarter-final really well. This is going to be the game of the weekend, I think, in the intermediate championship. I've given a draw in the senior. I've given a draw in the Premier Intermediate. If there is going to be a draw in this division, I think it's going to be this game. It's on in Bursalee, 5 o'clock on Sunday evening. Do find this one hard to call now. I must say, I'm going to go with a draw. I can't comprehensively say one teamer is going to win or not, so we'll go with a draw in that one. Then we look down on Sunday, 1 o'clock in Banshaw. We've Skeena-Rinky against Upperchurch Drumban. This is a relegation semi-final, and Arvale Rovers against Ballybacon Grange. I think Skeena-Rinky will beat Upperchurch's second team. I know they gave the walkover in their last group game against Ballingarry that we mentioned, but yeah, I think they should have just enough for Upperchurch's second team. And then Arvale Rovers against Ballybacon Grange. Arvale have been poor this year. Did they get a win? Did they get a win in the group stages? Sorry, no, I can't remember off the top of my head. They did beat Drummond on the last round there. So maybe we'll lean with them. Ballybacon have done well though. They bet Kappa White, as we mentioned. Lost out to Clouty's second team, and then lost out to Golden as well. So I think I'm going to go with Arvale Rovers in that one to round it off. So yeah, that pretty much does it for the predictions. What are we? We're at 47 minutes, so a bit longer than I expected this to take. But God, it's really, really, really looking forward to all these games. It's one of the big weekends, the big quarterfinal weekend. So many games to look forward to. All four of the senior games, the senior quarterfinals, are live on Tip FM. I'll be doing commentary on those games. So if you're out around the county, if you're at other games, throw on Tip FM if you want to get the latest from those games in Semple Stadium. And while I'm on air, I'll be keeping my eye on the other games that are happening to just keep the listeners up to date with how the scores are going around the county. So really looking forward to this weekend of games. A reminder, across the line on Tip FM on Friday, more build up. I'll have people on previewing the games, and as I mentioned, a couple of the managers from the different teams are on as well, including Eddie Brennan, Shane Keegan, Ken Dunn from Toom, and John O'Mara from Killadangan. So plenty more previews to come. That will be on the Tip FM website as well if you're not able to tune in at 6 o'clock on Friday evening. It will be on SoundCloud and all that come Friday evening if you want to listen back. But anyway, that's enough of the shameless plug. I'll be back on Monday, as I mentioned in the podcast the last couple of weeks. NFL is back on Sundays. Big NFL fan. Red Zone, 6 o'clock on Sunday. I won't be recording any podcasts come Sunday evening, so it will be Monday evening by the time I get to sit down and record the podcast to look back on these games. But yeah, tune in for that. If you enjoyed this podcast, share it around, give us a retweet if you're on Twitter, rate us well on Spotify, and like and subscribe to the channel. It is free on YouTube as well if you've enjoyed it. So that's going to be it for this week's podcast. Enjoy what is to be a massive weekend of hurling in Tipperary. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Monday.